Let's have a conversation about the value of attention and how much of it today's American consumers are willing to disperse, and what qualities of interest will keep them coming back for more. According to my friends over at PricewaterhouseCoopers, nearly 80% of American consumers say that speed, convenience, knowledgeable help, and friendly customer service are the most important elements of a positive customer experience. Prioritized technologies that provide the benefits rather than adopting new technologies for the sake of being cutting edge is also preferred by today's consumers. Meanwhile, a study published by McKinsey and Company revealed that 60% of consumers say that they'll become a repeat customer if they have a personalized customer experience. These revelations are nothing new for my friend David Avrin, who has spent more than 30 years in business as a sought-after motivational speaker and one of the renowned and premier customer experience experts which business leaders regularly seek out for advice about how to retain, maintain, and form new relationships with customers. Avrin says that any self-respecting business has to remember one thing. If you want repeat customers, then you have to be ridiculously easy to do business with. He believes in this motto so much that his latest book bears such a title. Ridiculously Easy to Do Business With, a practical guide to giving customers what they want, when and how they want it, is set to be released today. How exciting for sure. And Avrin joined me this week to tell me more about the book and how companies of any size answer the question, how do I stop pissing off my customers and giving them exactly what they want? I'm Kevin McShann. Let's have this conversation. Good to be with you again, David. And I want to welcome you back to the program, my friend, to talk about the customer experience. Great to see you this afternoon, and thank you so very much for being here.
Well, thank you again for having me. It's nice to be back. We had a great conversation, I don't know, a year or two ago, and there's always something new to talk about. There's always new things happening in business and conversation, and I'm glad to be joining you.
Well, as you know, David, everyone's attention span is different and always evolving, right? So we'll try to give them some food for thought. How about that?
Absolutely. No, if you're listening right now or watching, I don't know if you do the video version as well, stick around. This is going to be a good podcast. A lot of great information.
Absolutely. Now, my friend, I know that you are constantly on a crusade to help business owners and entrepreneurs really help their relationship with their customer, my friend. So tell me about your crusade that you're on and how it's going, my friend.
You know what? I think it's always ever evolving. When you think about those of us who are entrepreneurs, and we count ourselves among those. I mean, those of us in business, we're all trying to feed our families, and it's it's always changing. It's always difficult and different. I think if you look at yourself, you were back in the late 1800s, farming was farming and manufacturing was manufacturing, especially if you had a job. Today, how we do business, how we communicate, how we pay, how we connect and evaluate who we buy from, who we do business with, all of that's changing and it's constantly changing. So I think it also necessitates a constant influx of new perspective and new information, whether it's business books or speakers or articles. And of course, look at the access that we have to information online. I think we're always hungry for how do we stay ahead? How do we compete against others who are very good at what they do? And so I'm part of that machine. For me, it's essential that I keep my content current, that we tap into the latest research or we conduct the latest research. How are customers changing? How are we changing, right, as customers and consumers? And so that's what I do. And you're right, I am on a crusade. And I'm fortunate to travel the world. I've spoken in 26 countries around the world, helping business owners, entrepreneurs, teams within organizations better connect what they do with what customers want.
Yeah, absolutely. And David, I want to dive into the concept of diversity because,
Sure.
when we talk about diversity, I also think there's a sense of purpose to diversity, or to really open up eyes and dive into the concept of looking at things from a different perspective.
Sure.
So tell me about the importance of diversity in business.
Well, I think diversity is incredibly important. Unfortunately, there are those in our culture who will look at it as a way to control or force mandates. And the reality is, I think diversity is something that's just a smart decision, because when you bring within an organization, for example, a diversity of opinion or experience, it doesn't have to necessarily mean gender or race. It certainly can, but I think it's also diversity in terms of experience and age and demographics. The more wisdom we can bring to the team, the better decisions that we make. And I think for those, especially when you look at certain populations that have traditionally been undervalued, whether it's disability community, whether it's immigrants or others as well, there is so much wisdom and brilliance to be tapped into. I think from a customer's perspective, I think we vote with our feet and we vote with our pocketbook or wallet for how we do business. I don't know that we have a specific role in mandating what businesses do. I am an unapologetic, compassionate capitalist, and I'm very much in favor of businesses finding a way and making decisions for themselves on how they want to run their business. However, my friend, we do have freedom of choice, but we don't have freedom from the consequences of the choices that we make. And I think as consumers, I think we are much more, and I talk about that in my new book, Ridiculously Easy to Do Business With, about pulling back the curtain and showing your customers how you do business, where you source your materials, who you hire on your team, because especially younger consumers are much more conscious of doing business with businesses that align with their values. I think business owners can value whatever they want, and the marketplace will speak. I don't think we certainly don't have a requirement to buy from anyone or to contract with anyone. We make choices. Consumers make choices. Business owners and leaders make choices, and there are consequences to those choices. And so I'm all for supporting businesses that support people, that treat their employees well, that prioritize diversity. And once again, I think there's great opportunities for organizations to highlight the good works that they do, because the customers, we look at the choices that we have in the marketplace today. Look at the information we can gather as to how somebody does business. And so transparency, whether it's voluntary or involuntary, is a big part of it. And so here's the example that I use is there are big companies, the Walmarts and the other ones that come into communities. And for consumers, it's actually great, right? It gives us lower prices, big choices. But for small businesses, it's very difficult. And so we encourage people to support small businesses. Ultimately, people will make the decision. If you offer something in the marketplace that people want in a way that's fast and convenient the way they want it, then I think you've got a good chance of succeeding. So I know the question was about diversity, but I think it's just really important. But I don't think I can impose that on others. I think the marketplace will impose that. If somebody does business and with poor business practices, I think the marketplace will respond.
Yeah, absolutely. And David, how do you define the concept of business accountability, and what do you think it means to bring common sense to business?
Well, I think they're two different subjects. I think accountability can both be legal, moral, and economic. I think for a third one, legal, there's certainly accountability. From a moral perspective, people are watching. I tell a story in my keynote about sort of this time when I kind of got called out for some poor behavior when I was younger. And the admonition of the gentleman who called me out basically said, remember, somebody's always watching and you're getting paid for this, right? So I think there's a moral accountability. And then economic, I think good businesses make money. Smart businesses, the other ones don't. I think the other part of your question, remind me the second part of the question?
Yeah, I was just curious to ask you about common sense in business.
Oh, yeah.
And
Yeah.
what does that mean to you?
Well, I think common sense means something different today. Common sense used to be just in terms of treating people fairly and the things that we learned from mom and dad and the golden rule. I think common sense today, I think ties really well into customer centricity, which is if you don't like it, your customers won't like it, right? There's things that we hate in business. That was what drove my book, Why Customers Leave and How to Win Them Back, was essentially just a rant of all these things that really, pardon my language, piss me off, and others as well. I had a lot of interviews with others and these frustrating things that companies do again and again. And the common sense says, if this is something that's frustrating for you in dealing with other companies, then why do you think that your customers are going to put up with it? Right? Whether it's extended hold times, whether it's not getting back or returning emails or saying no to stupid things in your business because that's our policy. Well, relook at your policy. I mean, there's some pretty simple things that you can say yes to. So I think common sense is recognizing that there are things that as humans, as consumers, that we really like and the things that we prefer. And when you think you're smarter because your smart business practices say that there's a better way to do it, your customers will let you know. And they'll let you know more today than ever before in history. So I think that's part of it. I think we take a step back, and common sense has to have a role in those smart business decisions.
Yeah, and David, just before I ask you about your new book, I want to double down on individuals with disabilities and infusing them into the workforce. As you know,
Sure.
I travel around to give speeches about the importance of inclusion in the workforce. And when I worked at the Ontario Chamber of Commerce, David, we did a study and it found that 92% of consumers support businesses that hire folks with disabilities. So why do you think this is so important? And what sort of competitive advantages open to businesses if they're open to hiring folks with disabilities?
Well, I think there's only upsides to it. I think part of the challenge historically has just been the trepidation of just the ignorance or the naivete about what kind of accommodations we might need to make, or would there be a challenge with particular customers? And I think it's proven again and again that the advantages are many in almost every level. From a consumer perspective, I think it's a great perspective of companies doing the right thing and including people that need to be included as well. I think from a strategy perspective, I think it's super smart because we bring additional wisdom and life experience and perspective. I mean, a certain segment of our customers are going to be part of these populations as well. And so how do we serve them? Because you know what? Your $10 spends just as well as my $10, right? And so when we look at who our marketplace is, who we serve, it's a diverse population, racially, in terms of abilities, capabilities, demographics, gender. We sell to everyone. Right? I look at my audiences when I'm on stage, when you're on stage, it's representative of everyone. So why should our team not be representative as well? So I think there's such a positive, and there's so many studies that back all of that up. It's additional wisdom. I think I saw some study that said for those who were in some of those developmentally disabled and other communities, that the work ethic was far higher than traditional workers. The commitment was far higher than traditional workers. So somebody explained to me the downside. So I'm all in.
Yeah, absolutely. So, David, let's take a moment to dive into your new book. I know it's
Sure.
called A Practical Guide to Giving Customers What They Want, When They Want It, my friend, and how they want it. So, tell me about the book,
Sure.
what
Sure.
what it is about, and the takeaways that you hope people take after reading it.
Yeah, the book really came from sort of my mantra and my mission. And I remember some early conversations talking about reducing friction in the process, because the customer is the boss, right? If something, there was a very obvious study that was done some years back. It basically showed that when things are easy to do, we do more of it. And when things are hard to do, we do less of it. And you translate that to a customer experience, when the process is simple, when it's intuitive, when it's not frustrating, we're happy to do business with them that way. And so as I was consulting a client and talking about that, you need to be easy to do business. As a matter of fact, you need to be ridiculously easy, because we have choices and everybody's good, and they are, and that's new. It wasn't true 40 years ago. It wasn't true 100 years ago. Everybody's good. So where's our real opportunity for differentiation? And I said, it's not just to be easier to do business with, but to be ridiculously easy to do business with. So that's actually the title of the book. The title of the book is Ridiculously Easy to Do Business With. And the subtitle is a practical guide to helping companies. I'm going to look around because it's brand new. There it is. A practical guide to giving customers what they want, when and how they want it. It's just being released right now. So it was my way of saying, let me lay out all of these ways that there are potential friction and historic friction in our buying process. And here's why it doesn't work. Here are some studies and articles and findings that prove that out. And here's a better way to do it. So I've got chapters on being ridiculously easy to return or exchange, right? To being ridiculously easy to trust, ridiculously easy to reach a real person, ridiculously easy to see. I mean, you want to talk about disabilities or capabilities. I have a whole chapter on the reality that some businesses are hard to do business with because we literally can't see. I'm 60 years old, and I know what you're thinking. He cannot be 60 years old. I know, but I am. But I can't read menus. I can't read people's business cards. Most business collateral, marketing materials are designed by people under 40 years old. Yet I think 60% of all spending revenue is from people who are 50 years and older. So there's a disconnect. I talked about the size of the reading. Here's me, my smart reading glasses, the reading glass market, things that people don't think about. So I actually come up with I think I have 26 chapters, very short chapters that talk about here's how to be ridiculously easy to do this, ridiculously easy to see this, ridiculously easy to get the price. Think about companies that play these games that are just slimy and hiding the price. You have to click and then click again and click here for the price. And then you click there, but you don't get the price. You get a contact form so that they can reach out and contact you and tell you about their replacement windows or whatever that might be. So I kind of point out a lot of poor business behaviors that frustrate customers and drive them away. And so unlike my book, Why Customers Leave, I wanted this book, Ridiculously Easy to Do Business With, to take a really positive approach and say, here's some common places where customers get frustrated. And when they're frustrated, they leave because they can. And say, here's better ways to do it. Here's some great examples of companies that do it right. Ridiculously easy to get feedback on what your customers think, right? And all of it's overlaid with the reality of how we do business today. And how easy is it for us to leave negative comments or reviews online? How easy it is for us to just buy from somebody online or to get something delivered, because the conveniences are unbelievable today. It is a great time to be a customer. It's a great time to be a consumer. It's a really hard time to be in business. And so the book is about helping companies really control that one aspect of their business that they can really control, which is how easy are they to do business with? Because in a marketplace, when I would ask business leaders in my speaking, in my consulting, and my workshops, I say, why you? What's your differentiator? And I always get some version of it's about our quality and commitment and caring and trust, and it's about the people. Well, here's what the research shows. Customers assume great quality, they assume everybody's good, but they're prioritizing speed of response, speed of service, speed of delivery, speed of answers. They're prioritizing convenience, right? Today, my buddy Shep Hyken did a study, and he said that came out that 63% of people prefer a convenient experience over a friendly experience. Isn't that interesting? And it's not to suggest that we don't want friendly. I think we're fine with friendly. I like friendly. Just don't give me friendly and say no. Don't give me friendly and waste my time. Don't give me friendly and quote your policy. Solve the problem. Help your customers instead of the scripted responses. Oh, I understand, Mr. Avrin, how frustrated you must be. I'm like, don't read the script. Just solve it. Oh, yes, Mr. Avrin, I understand. No, don't read the script. Just help me. So convenience has become a primary driver for customer decisions. Speed has become a primary driver for customer choice. And so that's what I cover in the new book, Ridiculously Easy to Do Business With.
Yeah, fabulous. And David, I know this isn't your first rodeo in writing books and being on podcasts. So I'm curious, what essential question should entrepreneurs ask themselves if they want to write a book about their experience or business, or if they want to sort of launch a podcast or be on podcast? What sort of essential questions do you think they should ask themselves?
That's a great question. I think you've mastered this as well. I think that the importance, because I used to do radio. When you got a radio voice like this, I was like 18 years old. They're like, you should be in radio. So I did radio in my 20s and others as well. And one of the things I learned early on from a talk show guy, he says the most important thing is to have an opinion. It's not just posing questions. What do you think? It's like, this is what I think. And you invite people to agree or disagree. Who is it? Jim Rome, the sportscaster. His whole thing is, he says, if you're going to call in, have a take and don't suck. And what he's basically saying is, don't come in and just talk about, have an opinion, make sure it's a good one, because that's good radio. And I think it applies to books. I think it applies to podcasts. I think you have to have somewhere you're coming from. I think you can create a forum is one thing, but I think people who are interesting are people who have something to say. And so whether you're a podcast host or a podcast guest, or you're writing a book, I made it very clear at the beginning of my book, my newest book, my newest of 6 books I've written now, is that it's not a textbook. It's not a step-by-step guide to it. It's a conversation, and it's meant to be a conversation. And I write just like I speak. I have people who are friends or people who have been in my audience, and they read the book and they're like, read one of my books, and like, I can hear your voice when we read this, because I write for the ear more than I write for the page. I'm not writing newspaper articles. I'm writing conversations. I'm writing rants. So that's a great question about, I think there's a real tie-in between podcasts and books and blogs, which is have an opinion. It's not saying be a jerk. It's saying there's a place you're coming from. You're advocating for something. I like the idea of being, and you started the whole podcast with this, of saying that you're on this crusade. And I think and I don't know that I would even call myself that, but I think it's a great description of me, because I believe in this so strongly. I know that businesses can do better. I know they can feed their families and help their employees do that as well, if they do this better, this or X and Y. And so, books, blogs, I think it comes, podcasts, it comes from a place of having something to say. And then you find your tribe. You find your tribe who's interested in what you have to say. And there's a lot of people who have the imposter syndrome, or a voice in their head says, I don't know that what I have to say is. Think about what you talk about around the Thanksgiving table. Think about what you talk about with your friends, while you're watching a ball game or having a beer or out to lunch. That's what's great on a podcast. Or in a book. So this book started with this concept in my head is, as I've been teaching this and speaking about it and doing workshops and consulting, is I want to help companies become ridiculously easy to do business with, because then as a customer of their company, I'm happier. That makes sense?
Yeah, absolutely. And David, I want to go back to the customer experience for
Sure.
just a moment and ask you about how do you think market demand and the behavior of our customers can really tell you whether or not people will buy the product. So what do you think market demand and behavior of customers can tell us whether something will sell or stay on a shelf?
I think customers vote. I think we all vote with our feet and our time and our dollars for the experiences that we want to repeat, the ones that we want to remember, the transactions we want to engage in, the relationships that we want to build. And when I say experience, I'm not saying wow experiences. There's a lot of colleagues and others who talk about the importance of creating a wow experience. I don't think most business models lend themselves to a wow experience. When I go to my dry cleaner, I'm not looking for a wow experience. When I go to the grocery store, you know what's wow was that was super easy. Wow, I was able to do that with one click on my app. Wow, that was delivered right to my door. And it's not, and yeah, it might be to an extent about fundamentals, but I think it's about doing the fundamentals better than others. And so I think when you talk about sort of market conditions, and I think the market, especially in a free market economy, as we have, I mean, there's certainly guardrails around it through the Federal Trade Commission and others as well. But I think the marketplace speaks. You know, we can be really sad when a company like Toys R Us goes out of business, right? But the reality is, we're not suffering for toys. I mean, nobody's struggling to find toys because Toys R Us went out of business. You know why they went out of business? Was because it's the old way of doing things. They had an opportunity to be experiential. We go place and try things out. But now we have Amazon, and we have Target, and we have Walmart. We have customers almost always win in any disruption. And then there's others who don't. And because they were tied to an old way of doing business. Who was it? Bed Bath and Beyond just went bankrupt, went out of business a year ago. One of their representatives was on TV and was saying that they had had trouble with the supply chain and there were certain items that we couldn't find. That wasn't the issue. We weren't not finding what we wanted at Bed Bath and Beyond. We just weren't going to Bed Bath and Beyond anymore because we could get it all at Amazon. We could get it all at Walmart or at Target. And in most cases, we get it delivered to our house. So I think despite rules and regulations and boycotts or whatever else, I think the market will speak. And by the market, I mean us, you and I, and everybody that we know. If there's a company that people buy from a lot, then they're likely going to stay in business. And if there's a company that people don't buy from, and which once again, I'm not just trying to just plug my book, but I think that's what I talk about, was in a marketplace where everybody's good, what drives our decisions? You know, I can get it from anywhere, but these guys, I can get it this afternoon. The other ones, I have to order it and I'll get it in 3 days. Or I could buy it from them, but I have to get in my car and drive across town. Or I live just south of Denver. We have 3 Amazon warehouses. And so I know it's really frustrating for small business owners and things and say, how do I compete against Amazon? And I put it right back on them. How do you compete against Amazon? You have to answer that question. Mm-hmm. It's not throwing up your hands and just being angry. What can we do that they can't? What can we do that people can come in and see and touch and feel and try on? Business owners better have an answer to that question. And of course, it's different depending on the industry. If you own a lighting store and you own an apparel store, it's all different. But rather than throw their hands and being angry, that's the question. Answer it. How do we compete? And part of the way you compete is by taking away friction in the process. Don't make your employees happy by making your customers do the work, right? And it's a longer conversation, but there's so many different nuances to it.
Yeah, absolutely. And David, I wanted to ask you about forming relationships in today's digital space.
Sure.
How do you think we can still create authentic relationships in today's digital age?
Sure. In some cases you don't. And that's a hard answer. I'll give you an example. I've spoken for hundreds and hundreds of CEO roundtable groups. Matter of fact, I've spoken to over 500 Vistage and others of that type. And I would always ask the question, there would invariably be somebody in that group from banking or finance. Excuse me. And I would say, what's your competitive advantage? And I'd always get this, some version of this. They would go, it's the relationship we have with our customers. I said, okay, well, what happens when 99% of your transactions at a bank happen on your phone? I'm not standing in line at the bank anymore on Friday afternoon depositing a paycheck. Nobody's asking me, so what are your plans for the weekend? Right? There is no customer service, but there is an experience, to be clear. Kevin, I mean, I have a digital experience, don't I? It's we talk about CX as customer experience, but UX is the user experience. So my relationship with my bank is all through my app. Now, as much as they would love to have a relationship, I don't need one. Unless I have a business banking relationship, or I'm buying a home or whatever else, 99% of their customers have no relation other than a digital one. So their responsibility there is to expedite the digital relationship. If I put in my username and my password wrong, or I put my password wrong in, but my user, don't make me go back and do all of that again. There's whole teams working to shave an eighth of a second off transactions. Can we do it biometrically? Can do it with our face, or with our thumbprint, or whatever else. So the relationship is there, except it's a digital one. And so banks are scrambling to try and find out, how do they effectively differentiate when every bank has an app? Every bank is regulated by the same governmental departments. I mean, there really is no significant difference. And so they're trying to discover or create those differences. So back to your question about how do we create, I think for those who have an in-person element, I think we have to double down on it. I think we have to enhance it. If somebody has to come into your establishment, retail, restaurant, or otherwise, how easy are we to do business with? I mean, there's the relationship. Not everybody has a conversation. There's restaurants that you love, but are there ways to go on an app and do the call ahead seating, so you don't have to wait in the waiting room or out front in the cold for 45 minutes waiting for a table? Those make you feel better about the businesses you do business with, if they don't waste your time, if they don't frustrate you, if they don't say no for dumb things. So it's a question that everybody's asking. How do we enhance the relationship when so much is digital? We have to expedite and simplify the digital. And B is we have to really maximize every in-person opportunity we have to be not just functional and capable and friendly, but ridiculously easy to do business with.
Yeah, absolutely. And David, I'm also curious to ask you, if you've been in business for 5 minutes or for 20 plus years like yourself, I'm curious, what are some tried and true principles to really enhance that customer experience? Because it's all about authenticity, isn't it?
Well, it's authenticity is a part of it. You can be authentic and be a jerk too, right? If you were authentically, no, but I'm not meaning to diminish it. I think authenticity is incredibly important. People know, I think we all know when something's scripted, or when people are just quoting policy as opposed to, making good decisions. It's really easy to be lazy that way. But I think some of the fundamentals goes back to looking at your business from the customer's perspective. And I think everybody I talk to says that we do that, but I don't know that they do. I think we look at it first and foremost from the perspective of our business, right? Is it functional? Is it predictable? Is it profitable? I mean, that's the foundations of business, right? You have to have something that the market wants. You have to be able to produce it in a way that you make a profit. If you don't make a profit, you're out of business. But for so long, it was about competency, about being really good at what you did. And so for, I think, most of human history, we were what we called product centric. Product centric means you're really good at what you do. You know everything about it, you've perfected it, and you sell it to as many people as possible. That creates market share, right? Whether you made violins by hand and you were really good at it, you sold the best violins and you sold it, or it was a restaurant or whatever that business was. Product centric was how business was done. What we're seeing the shift today is going from product centric to customer centric. And to be clear, customer centric doesn't mean that we are customer focused, right? We're all customer focused. People always say, oh, it's all about the customer. We know that, right? Customer centric means something different. It means we're good at what we do. Everybody's good, but we're going to be better than our competitors at understanding the changing wants, needs, and expectations of our customers. So we're committed to quality, but we're not just talking about, because the problem is when we are all product centric, and it worked for a while because everybody's products, some were good, some were bad, probably until about the 60s or 70s. But the problem is we use the same words. We talk about our quality and commitment and caring and trust in people, right? We all do. And then we all blend. And then people are just looking for, all right, everybody's good. Let's get who's got the lowest price. And that's the challenge. So when we see the shift towards customer centricity is you're seeing people delve deeper into the lives, the demographics, the psychographics, the preferences of their audience, of their customers. And then we adjust not only how we do business, but what we manufacture, what we sell into what it is that people really want. And so it's not just we're really good at this, let's try and get people to buy it. It's we really look at the market. What's the market? What do they want today? How do they want it delivered? Sometimes if everybody's product or service is great, everybody's smart, maybe we can differentiate by being more convenient, right? More responsive, less frustrating. I mean, it's all sort of along the lines of being ridiculously easy to do business with.
Yeah, absolutely. And David, no matter how digital we get in business, experience still matters in business.
Absolutely.
Why do you think experience matters in business?
Well, I think it matters for two reasons. One, because it's the opportunity for differentiation. And two is because we're human. And because there's things that we get frustrated about. I mean, it's hard because it's very much sort of this first world problem. There are people on the other side of the world who would love to have, the problems that we have, that we're frustrated that we have to wait, 6 hours for something to be delivered. Okay, but we can't dismiss it because if it's frustrating to your customers, then it's frustrating. And when it's frustrating for your customers, they seek alternatives, or worse, they go online and they just complain about you to everybody else. I think the experience is so important because the experience is important to us as customers. And once again, when I talk about experience, it's the difference between customer service and customer experience. I think service is what we provide, right? We're friendly, we're helpful. I think we've been talking about it for 50 years. We know how to provide good service. But the experience is different. The experience is what your customers experience. Was it frustrating? Was it simple? Was it intuitive? Did it seem like it was wasting my time? Did I feel disrespected because I had a simple request and they said no to everything? Why is it important? It's important because A, we're emotional beings, and B, we have choices, right? If you don't, most unhappy customers don't complain. They just don't come back. And they don't come back because they don't have to. Right? I tell companies all the time, I said, you can be as stringent on your rules as you want, your policies. We're only going to do this. We're only going to be open on these days. It's your choice. But I think about my kids when they were little and they would say, like, you're not the boss of me. The customer's the boss. And they can fire us whenever they want. I tell business owners, entrepreneurs, others, I said, you decide it's your business. You strike that balance. Just understand that your customers will choose. And if they like another choice better, then they're going to choose them. So I think the experience is really important for that reason, because A, we're emotional. We make decisions emotionally. And B, we have choices.
Yeah, absolutely. And David, as you know, customer attention spans, according to LinkedIn, are an average of 8 seconds, my friend. So tell me,
sorry, what were you saying?
Yeah,
I was making a joke. My attention span was really short.
Yes, of course. So
Go ahead. What's your question?
No, the question is, what's the key to sort of maintaining the attention span of a customer?
Sure. Well, I think it's actually more simple than people look at formulas and here's what we've learned from commercials and here's what people watch. I think it just comes down to don't waste my time.
Mm-hmm.
Make it relevant to me and don't waste my time. And if it's not relevant to me, then I'm going to move on. That's why people say that they'll look at the website and they'll make a decision within, 5 seconds. You know why they make a decision in 5 seconds? It's not because they have a short attention span. It's because they're looking for things that apply to them. If you're reading a headline that says, do you suffer from this condition? And if you don't, you move on. That wasn't because somebody had a short attention span. It's because it didn't apply to them. Does that make sense? So
Absolutely.
I think that's the answer. I think it's we keep their attention by targeting the right people and making it clear how it applies to them quickly.
Yeah, indeed, my friend. And I'm curious, David, with all of your experience and expertise in business and entrepreneurship, as you go around and talk to people, what do you think is the new ways that businesses are constantly striving to start new conversations in business? What are your thoughts there?
I don't think they are, and I think they should. So I think it's a great question. I don't think that most companies are striving to start new conversations, but I think they should be. Most businesses, let's be honest, they're working really hard. They're really, really good people. I tell this, my audiences all the time. I talk about your competitors. I said, here's the worst thing about your competitors is your competitors are very, very nice people. They'd be friends if they aren't already, they'd be your friends. We're just all trying to feed our families. There's no enemies out there. And I think most entrepreneurs, business owners, leaders in business, I think they have their head down and they're working really, really hard. I'm not critical of business. I'm encouraging them to do more, to see where those opportunities are. And so I think it's really important that they start new conversations to get that feedback. Unfortunately, too often it's just you make a purchase and then you get a survey. And then if you don't fill out the survey, you get a reminder 2 days later, hey, remember to fill out our survey. And by the fourth time that they say, hey, you still haven't filled out our survey. Well, I didn't fill out your survey because I didn't feel like it. And I had a decent experience, but now I have a bad experience because you keep hounding me about your surveys. So I think there are ways to start conversations. I think there's also we have access to more information, industry information, research, new studies, new surveys. I think it's a great way. And then just Google, look on YouTube. There's the whole category of voice of the customer initiatives for larger businesses who have the resource. It's a way to get some real feedback of what's working and what doesn't. And what doesn't work. The interesting other thing is there's other sort of intangible ways, and I talk about this in my book about getting feedback that is less formal. It's not a question that was asked, but it was based on the behavior. If you have an online store and 60% of your customers abandon their shopping cart, they're telling you something without telling you something. I don't know what that is, but that's what they have to find out. That's the conversation. At what point did somebody abandon that cart? Was it because the price was hidden and as soon as they saw the price, they were gone? Was it because you offered a free trial, but it wasn't a free trial because when you get to the end of the process, you still have to enter your credit card information and they will bill you in 30 days and they'll automatically bill you every year if you don't cancel and don't remember. Once again, I talk about that in the book. But those are conversations. People's behaviors are conversations. People leaving. If you have a subscription service and people cancel at some point, churn is what we call that. That's feedback. That's a conversation, whether or not you knew you were having it or not. So I think it's a great question that you ask. And I think businesses need to put their head up every once in a while and really look at what their customers are telling them and how they're telling them that.
Yeah, and David, I've got 2 questions left for you. And the first has to do with being a public speaker. As you know, I go around to talk to businesses about the
Sure.
importance of inclusion, equity, and diversity. And you talk to businesses about a business and customer experience. But I'm curious to ask you about retaining the attention of an audience and the importance of consistent messaging as a speaker. How important do you think that is?
Oh, I think, well, I don't think audiences see the consistent messaging because audiences basically hear you once. I think for you to be good at what you do as a speaker, I think you have to have a really well fine-tuned message take. But what I think it doesn't mean, and this I think for anybody who's thought about speaking, I don't think it means anything about being overly rehearsed. I've seen speakers who are so overcoached, and audiences don't care. I'll probably get in trouble for this, but some of the worst speech coaches I've ever seen are people that come out of theater, Broadway, or things like that, and they talk about being intentional on stage and don't wander, just pick a spot, move intentionally to the spot, and then make your gesture, make your point. And I'm like, garbage. Walk around, do whatever you want. If you have something important to say, if you are articulate in what you want, if you're passionate about your subject, if it's relevant to that audience, if there are clear takeaways, I tell aspiring speakers all the time, you don't have to be great to be a speaker. You got to be good, but your content has to be great. And I think audiences appreciate. I don't think audiences care where you stand. I think many of the coaches are really cruel to women in this profession. I'm a big fan of women professional speakers, and I think they're given so much bad advice on that makes them so overly self-conscious about what they wear or how they gesture if they have joy. Nobody cares. I'm such a fan of women speakers, and I think they get bad advice. I think go share, be you, be who you are, share something important, share something relevant and actionable and fundable. I say that all the time. If you want to go speak, have something to talk about that somebody's willing to pay for. There's no shortage of people who want to inspire people and change people's lives. I just don't know who pays for that, unless you're a self-help guru. So my advice, it goes back to your thing when you talk about authenticity. I think it's super important. I don't worry so much about being perfect. Don't worry about your clothes. Don't worry. And people can disagree with me all they want. As an audience member, I love somebody who has something to say. Teach me something I didn't know. Challenge my perspective, and wear whatever jewelry you want.
Yeah, absolutely. And, David, my final question has to do with the thrill of adventure in life.
Yeah.
In my judgment, life is one of the greatest things that we're given. I truly believe that living life is the greatest blessing that we can all have. And, I look at life as an adventure, sort of living our purpose of exhilaration. So,
Yep.
I'm curious to ask you about, as you continue to paint your portrait of success in life, how do you hope to continue to contribute to the conversation of progress, my friend?
That's a great question. I'm one of those people that I'm really introspective. I'm really intentional about who I am, and people often ask, because I'm on stage, I'm really funny and I'm pretty outgoing, and people have often asked if I'm the same person off stage, and the answer is yes. I'm exactly the same person in every aspect of my life, probably with the exception of when my kids were younger and I had to discipline them. Other than that, I'm an extrovert through and through. I'm committed to leaving a positive impact, leaving that campsite better than I found it. But now I'm in my third act. So my wife and I, we have 5 kids between the two of us, all grown and gone. Doesn't mean they're off the payroll, but at least they're out of the house right now. And so we're really looking at not how we're slowing down, but what do we want to do? What's the impact that we want to continue to make? And so there's a very famous poem by a woman named Linda Ellis where she talks about, I won't do the poem right now, but she talks about the most important etching on your tombstone. And it's not your name, and it's not the day you were born, and it's not the day that you died. It's the dash. The dash between those dates is the most important thing because that represents your life. everything you did between the time when you were born and the time that you died, and everything that you lived and loved and won and lost and learned. And so I'm just committed to living my dash. As a matter of fact, to such an extent, for anybody who's watching, if you have a video version, I'll let you look at the camera. I actually have it tattooed on my wrist. I have a dash. And that dash reminds me every day that I still have more to do, and that the things that I do matter, and that the words that I say and the impact that I make in the speeches I give, in the conversations I have, in the books that I write, or the videos I record. So I think you and I are very much on the same page for that. That what we do, I don't waste a day, and I think what we do is important, and especially for those of us who are messengers and teachers, I think it's important that we're really intentional about it.
I always say we all have to maximize our moment of difference, right?
That's exactly right.
Absolutely, my friend. And tell me, David, if people want to get connected with you, buy the book, or
Sure.
Get more knowledge from you, what's the best way they can do that?
Best way, just look me up online. It's just David Avrin, Avrin. You can look me up at davidavrin.com. I'm on all the social media, on Instagram and TikTok. I think I'm the real David Avrin, because there's a lot of catfish out there. There's a whole nother story. My books are all on Amazon, and I'm not sure when this episode is going to air, and hopefully it's evergreen, but the book will be out mid-June 2024 for Ridiculously Easy to Do Business With. It'll be on Audible and Kindle and hardback as well. And then of course I speak for a living. So if you're with an organization that holds annual meetings, look me up for you as well. And so, we're always looking to share the message.
Absolutely. Well, David, I'm always smarter when I get a chance to talk to you.
Thank you, my friend. I feel the same.
Yeah, absolutely. I thoroughly enjoyed our time together, and I want to wish you continued success with all you've got going on. And I want to thank you for engaging in conversation with me this afternoon. It's most appreciated.
Nice to see you again, my friend.